while it is a pretty bleak picture I just painted, there is some light on the horizon. There are some institutions of higher learning that are focused on outcomes for their alumni rather than conditioning them to or brainwashing them. Now, one of these institutions is Bond University on the Gold Coast. Bond is different to other universities in that it pursues an individual approach to learning. They invest in their students, and in return, they expect the students to invest in themselves. Bond have a unique accelerated learning program that gets young adults degree qualified, job ready, into the workforce in as little as 2 years. It features programs that take education beyond the classroom and into the real world. And from my perspective, one of the most important things they do is make entrepreneurship at the core of almost every study program. Today was graduation day for some Bond students, and I'm delighted to have had a chance to speak with the Vice-Chancellor of Bond University, Professor Tim Brailsford. Professor Tim Brailsford, it's been a very big day for Bond University. It's graduation day. You spoke about how different Bond University is to other universities. Share with the people at home what makes Bond different.
Well, hi Cory, and great to be here. Bond is a completely different university from, I think, anything else in the country. We're Australia's first private university. We're independent. We were set up through private enterprise, not through government. But importantly, we're non-profit as well. So every single dollar that comes into the campus is reinvested back into the campus and is there for future student use. So importantly, it's almost like a self-sustaining model. And because of that, we are ultra prioritised around our student welfare and success.
This seems to be one of the key differences to me as an observer and someone who's had students here, sons here. You are focused on the students. You said today that it wasn't about teaching them or what they have to know. It's about how to find things for themselves, to challenge orthodoxies. And that seems so different to what many people's university experiences are, where they're conditioned to repeat a response rather than actually think through and logically analyse what's going on.
Well, the foundation, Cory, of any university is ultimately knowledge and the dissemination of that knowledge and the education of people who come into the corridors of campus. And so, that is education both in a sort of technical and narrow sense. So a chosen profession has certain technical skills and proficiencies which students have to master, but also we're great believers in a wider concept of education, which is educating people for life. As soon as you finish university, doesn't mean your formal education has to stop. Indeed, your informal education then kicks in. And we talk about lifelong learning here, which is preparing students for those types of circumstances in life where they're going to have to learn themselves. And over the last couple of years, we've all, I think, realised that it is about grasping the mantle and actually taking some ownership and some responsibility for yourself.
I know that's going to be music to the viewers' ears at home, because quite often, I've been a fierce critic of universities and education. I don't think it equips many students for the real world and the practical adversities that they're going to face. They think somehow having a paper is going to, meet the path, the world beat a path to their door. Bond graduates, though, do have a very successful employment outcome. They seem to get employed very quickly after leaving. Is that because of the practical life skills that you teach them as well as the educational material?
We have a motto here, Cory, which is in our first semester, pretty much the first week. So the students have only been on campus for a few days. And in our orientation, we talk to them about your career starts now. It doesn't start towards the end of their degree when they start looking for jobs. We start preparing them really from day one. And part of that is actually our model. So here we run 3 full semesters over the course of the year. There's minimal downtime. There's a small break for Christmas. And so the students get used to the sort of routine of everyday life, and they have to take responsibility for what happens on a day-to-day basis. So we do unashamedly talk about preparing students for the rough and tumble of the world of work out there.
Well, the rough and tumble for university students, 3 semesters. Imagine that. That would cause a strike in most places, wouldn't it, for students not to have that big, long summer break?
Well, look, to be honest, Cory, Bond's not for everyone, and we don't try and be for everyone. So we're interested in students who are aspirational. We're interested in students that want to be inspired, and we're interested in students that really want to get on with their lives.
And one of the interesting things that you also said today was about challenging the status quo, investigating for yourselves. Now, that seems contrary to many universities where students are penalised, and I've heard so many reports coming through my office about how they're not allowed to speak up for their own values because it's not the university values. Bond doesn't impose that sort of dogmatic idiom on them, does it?
No. And look, I can't speak for what happens at other universities, but certainly here at Bond, we're very much believers in teaching the students the generic skills, which is really around dissect the argument, understand both points of view, analyse both sides of the story, gather the facts, look at the science, collect the data, synthesise the evidence, and ultimately form a conclusion. But also, once you form that conclusion, you've got to have the skills to articulate and influence and lead other people around that conclusion.
Oh, how desperately needed that is in today's society, where we're told always the science is settled and it can't be challenged, and that sort of stuff I think is very unscientific. Let me take you back a little while though. 30 years ago, Bond brought on their first alumni. You've had 30,000 odd students through it. How has it been received by the broader academic community compared, say, with what it was like 30 years ago when you were the brash upstart of universities?
Yeah, well, Bond itself, I think, is Australia's greatest successful educational startup. If you think about it, where we came from, I mean, the campus itself was actually just a swamp. It was a pine forest with a swamp, right? And there was some vision around that. And the university started off, as you say, with a big bang, but very quickly fell on some pretty hard times over its first decade, like many startups, indeed. But once the university got on its feet, the last couple of decades, we've been able to forge our own identity. I believe that the Bond brand now is a brand that people are very proud of. It's certainly a brand that resonates nationally and indeed internationally. Some of our programs, we have students from all over Australia and all over the world who are trying to get in here. So the brand has really held up well over time, and the brand stands for excellence.
Yeah, it certainly does. And look, I'm talking my own book. I was convinced to send my children here by some former alumni. They've loved the experience, and they're now talking about, I hope my children will be able to go to Bond University too in 20 or 30 years' time. But that's testament to you and your predecessors and the alumni that have really contributed to make Australia's first private university one of its most successful. Professor Brailsford, thanks so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Cory.
Did you pick up the telling line in that interview? Bond University used to be a swamp. Now, Canberra's a bit of a swamp, but Bond has proven good things can come out of a swamp. Let's hope for more from our political people too.